All right, this evening we have the Mayor's Budget Message presented by Keith Hertzberg. Keith has been working in the Mayor's office for over 5 years now, and he is the Mayor's Budget Advisor, so he is more than qualified to speak with us this evening. And without further ado, I will let him introduce himself further. Keith.
All right. Can everyone hear me? All right. So I will do my best to be as exciting as dopamine research, eelbots, and PFAS research, but no promises, but I'll do my best. So, all right. We're going to try out the clicker and see how good this works. But to introduce myself a little bit further, I'm Keith Hertzberg. I serve as a budget and innovation advisor to Mayor Matt Mahan. I am born and raised in South San Jose myself. I went to Clara Middle School, graduated from Pioneer High School, so know this area well, and it's really good to be here with you at the Almaden Valley Community Association tonight. So what I'm going to do is provide just quick for last, and I'll do my best to answer everything. If you have a specific slide you want to go back to, try to keep it in mind, and we'll do our best to switch back to it. So to start, where are we at in the budget process? So currently we are here at the budget study sessions and town halls portion of the budget process. We just recently passed the mayor's March budget message in early March, and now we are telling the community about what's included in that. And then the next step will be the city manager will come back on May 1st to give and will publish her proposed operating budget, which outlines all of the investments and difficult to that proposed operating budget, including some other council pet projects, and then the council votes on that, and we have a baked budget. So the total budget in the city of San Jose is $7.2 billion. This is both capital budget and operating budget. The operating budget is the general fund, which is the primary funding source we're going to be talking about today, and special funds. The way I like to describe operating versus capital is operating is your librarians, capital is the libraries, the building itself. So this budget represents 250 programs across 74 out, the 4.7% in community and economic development. That small category is the money that the city spends to make more money, to influence more economic development. Two notable things you'll see missing from this budget are school and behavioral health. Schools are operated by their own independent boards, as we all know. I know this is a topic at the top of everyone's mind in Almaden right now, and behavioral health, which is a primarily county operated function. All right, so I said we are going to mainly talk about the general fund this evening. So most of the general fund goes towards paying the people that libraries, parks, code enforcement, and homeless solutions. This is the slice of the budget we are going to focus on. And it's important to note that we only actually have real decision-making power over 66% of that. Only 66% is discretionary. The reason for that is because 19.2, nearly 20%, is tied up in unfunded pension liabilities, meaning off the top, even before we start discussing what investments we're going to make for specific programs, 19.2% of that is going to pay former employees of the city. So why is this the case? Historically, City Hall and and has left us, the taxpayers, and this current council to foot the bill. I do want to note, though, that while this is 19.2% now, we are going to be peaking in the near future. And if we have continued good fiscal stewardship with this council, we will see a far less and decreased impact on the general fund. So that 19.2% will get it, start whittling its way down, and we'll have more dollars to spend on essential services that we all depend upon. So now we want to talk a little bit about where does the city actually get its revenue? Which make up 60% of general fund revenue. A fun fact for you is that the property and sales tax that is collected by the city doesn't even cover the public safety departments, police and fire in the city of San Jose. So we have to diversify our revenue which is why we have business tax, utility tax, and the other revenue streams that you see there. San Jose, as I'm sure many of you know, having, being active members in AVCA, San Jose is also we have extremely low property and sales tax revenue per capita. That's right, Lydia, bedroom community. We don't have as many jobs here, so our sales and property tax is more limited. The other interesting thing is that obviously the city of San Jose does not receive the full load of property tax payments. We actually only receive 10 cents for every dollar of property tax collected. The vast majority goes to schools and county as well. So we only get a sliver of that. So broader trends in our economy, the reason for this line, this is a broader trend across the state of California, but San Jose is not spared in that slowed economy. Our job growth is also stagnant. Job growth is a key indicator for healthy budgets. If you see growing jobs and employment base, you'll also see budgets in healthier situations with more sales tax and property tax coming to city coffers. This office vacancies across the city are relatively high still. Downtown specifically is nearly 30%. So we still have a lot of commercial space that needs to be filled. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a couple slides. And development activity across the city is also relatively weak. We're seeing less buildings pop up and so what does that mean? We have rising costs that are outpacing revenue growth, and that's leaving us with a $56 million budget deficit in this fiscal year. So I know that sounds like a lot of money, but that's actually a relatively small amount within the context of our entire budget, and compared to other large California cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, where they're facing massive layoffs and service cuts, we are, I'm not going to say fortunate to have a budget deficit, but we are in better shape than those other cities. So we can't operate as a city in California with a deficit, so we need to balance. We are projecting almost a $27 million shortfall following this year. So how are we going to focus our decision making? Anyone who has been to a town hall or talk with Mayor Mahan, you know that he's pushed forward focus areas. So we have 5 focus areas. These focus areas behind me directly align with the priorities outlined in our annual resident survey. That's neighbors like you telling us what is important and what you want the city to focus on and solving the most important issues. So we, as a council, and the mayor did this when he took office, have all decided to focus on these 5 areas. The first one, our top priority has been to bring people indoors, and we built the capacity to do so. We built interim housing units, converted motels and hotels, opened safe parking sites for RVs and lived-in vehicles, as well as safe sleeping sites, which are sanctioned tent encampments. We built more placements than any other city on the West Coast, and now we operate a shelter system, which is 2,200 units. So when they're available, since we have 2,200 units, we're also making sure that people use that shelter, and we are preventing re-encampment from previously abated areas. A placement in one of these sites, we're making sure that areas are not re-encamped. So now that we have a shelter system that is 2,200 units, we need to optimize. We are running this, but it is expensive, and we need to make sure that we are focusing the dollar and getting as much impact as we can. So what are we doing? We are going to negotiate lower operating costs system-wide by standardizing agreements with service providers that operate these sites, maybe security contracts that are going to be optimized, food service contracts, that kind of thing. We also provide some more of the wraparound services that we offer at those sites. The county is also committed to opening an additional 220 mental health beds in the region, not just our interim sites. Next slide. So how do we prevent people from falling into homelessness in the first place? San Jose has developed a nationally recognized model of a homelessness prevention system in partnership with the county and with Destination Home. Through this program, since it's been stood up, 1,800 families have been served, 70% of which are San Jose specific families. That year that they received the support, and 92 avoided entering homelessness 2 years after receiving the support. So we know the easiest and most cost-effective way to limit homelessness is to make sure people don't fall into homelessness in the shelter system to begin with. So that's one way. Second way, Homeward Bound. Homeward Bound is a reconnection program. This is where we are helping people who are actively living on the streets reconnect with loved ones. If they're living in San Jose on the streets right now, how can we reconnect them with a parent, a sibling, a loved one in another city in California or outside the state, and then following up with them after they are brought back into the is a work program for unhoused individuals that provides them with some income and then helps them build a path to self-sufficiency. So that is a partnership with Goodwill, and it's a great way to make sure that people are kind of being accountable, holding themselves accountable and earning a little income while they get themselves back on their feet. The next focus area is cleaning up our neighborhoods. So together in San Jose, and over the last year, we removed almost 25 million pounds of trash off of our streets. And it's a long way to go, but we know that resident satisfaction with the city services to clear blight and litter off our streets has increased 13% according to our annual resident survey. So we're doing a lot to restore still. A great example of this improvement has been restoring San Jose's central trail system, the Guadalupe River Trail. And block by block, we set up what's called a no encampment zone, meaning that in the areas around the creek bed, we said there's not going to be encampments here, and we're going to abate, and we're going to make sure that that progress is preserved. So what is the benefit of that? The park is looking great. People are back using the trail system. Trail usage from around Waz Way has increased 110%. And then 35% around Coleman. So that's great news. Hopefully we'll see that continued activity along the trail system. And as encampments pop up, we now have the policy authority to go and say, you can't encamp this area, and we can continue restoring that site. What else are we doing to beautify? We are cracking down on graffiti. So we are removing still quite a bit of graffiti across the city. Our focus has primarily been on enforcement. Our police department has caught a few prolific taggers and then offered them restitution. Graffiti is down 18%, and resident satisfaction with the city's efforts to remove that graffiti is up 10%. So along with these blight efforts, it's the same thing as our shelter system. We need to get faster, more efficient, and we need to optimize given our budget situation. So it's great to see satisfaction increase on our resident survey, but we have to do more to be faster. So there's an opportunity now to use technology to deter illegal dumping. And we've also set an ambitious goal in the March budget message to decrease code enforcement citation time from 65 days to 10. The way we're doing that is we're giving authority to other they need, get some more bodies writing those citations. We've also noticed some inefficiencies with our free junk pickup program. I'm sure many of you have taken advantage of this program, but we need to make sure that certain items aren't being left and then becoming an illegal dumping issue. So we're trying to corral those two services and make sure that when you do request a free junk pickup, that the item being requested to be picked up is actually picked up, and we don't have to send an additional different team to go pick out that dumping. And then we ask many of you, all of our residents of San Jose, to use our 311 app, but we have to make sure that the 311 app is responsive and works. And make sure that it's responsive, and then being clear on what the action being taken is when you submit that request. Next focus area is improving community safety. So I'm sure you've all read the news stories that San Jose has been renamed the safest big city in America. Violent crime is down 18% since 2023. Property crime is down 7% in that same time. And we are the only large city in America that can say for 4 years running now, we have solved 100% of our homicides, which is a testament to SJPD and all of you, because we know that effective law enforcement looks like our residents activity and being really that trusted partner in solving these crimes. But it's something to be proud of. And we've done this with one of the leanest police forces in America. We gave the police chief a goal of stabilizing our workforce, and he has done that. We've seen in the last year academy sizes increase by 35%, which is great, but it's still not exactly where we need to be. We're just under 1,000 street-ready officers in the city, and that number should look more like 1,100, 1,200 officers to be properly staffed. We are up 5 net officers on the year, and it's probably San Jose Police Department. So we've used automated license plate readers and our real-time intelligence center. Basically, every large crime that you have seen solved or addressed on the news in the last year or so by San Jose PD, those 2 resources have been helping them and address that. Now, the next focus area is growing our economy. So this is that 4% I mentioned. We have to spend money to make money in the city of San Jose, and we're extremely dependent on economic development to make sure that our budget situation is where we want it to be. So San Jose is about to see its power supply over our municipal utility, we decided let's partner up and make sure that San Jose is power ready and the most power ready city in California. We already have a dozen or so projects coming online in the next few years through this partnership, some of which are data centers, which generally are powered with like 93% carbon-free energy and recycled water. The other additional benefit of data centers is for every 99 megawatt data center that is brought online, that's about $6 to $7 million in general fund revenue. So that's hiring more police officers, that's keeping our Sunday library hours and many other essential services. Opening up R&D and advanced manufacturing campuses as well. One such example is the proposed Google AVCA hub that is expected to bring in thousands of jobs and additional property and utility tax revenue to the city. We've also achieved 10 years of net business growth, and this is something to be proud of. 7 new business improvement districts over the last 3 years. The council has been extremely active in organizing these in various parts of the city. What this is business owners and business corridors coming together and buying in and making sure that they're essentially taxing themselves to then have was also the highest sales tax receipt year for restaurants in our city's history. So continue to go out on date nights in San Jose. Don't go out to a fancy dinner in Cupertino. Stay in San Jose if you can. We also have 82 AI startups in our city, which have raised a collective $8.4 billion in venture capital. This is huge, and it shows that San Jose still is kind of on that cutting edge of innovation, and we want to make sure that those AI companies continue their growth into scale here in San Jose. And the way we do that is by becoming a place that is worthy of their investment. We also residents hold STEM degrees, and that 1 in 5 San Joseans work in manufacturing. So we need to play to our strengths. We have directed our Office of Economic Development this year in the March message to identify clusters where we have a comparative advantage and reinvest and have a strategy around those different clusters, making sure that things like AI or advanced manufacturing, semiconductor production, and R&D are here in San Jose and producing good, high-paying jobs. We also know that over 60,000 small businesses call San Jose home, and those owners are pursuing the American dream. We need to make sure that we, as the city, permitting for restaurants. We're going to grow our storefront activations grants, which help with some of that startup cost of small business, as well as expanding our downtown leasing incentive, which hopefully for some of those 82 AI startups will help them call downtown San Jose home and establish their workforce presence here. Another bet we are making is our experience economy. So we just hosted the Super Bowl and March Madness, which were huge opportunities for the city of San Jose. And we still have the FIFA World Cup coming soon in June, July. So the experience economy, just for some stats, we saw over 500,000 people business owners experienced their busiest weekend ever, and they reported their single day sales record was broken by 30%. So their busiest weekend ever was shattered. So it's really great to see, and we need to provide more opportunities for large-scale events to come into San Jose and call this and really become the destination that we know we can be. So here's a couple other events that are coming into San Jose in the near future. This year, we already had NVIDIA GTC, which is one of the largest tech conferences in the world. Coming up soon, we do have the FIFA World Cup. We are developers. You'll see in September. This is Europe's version of GTC. Like Judo United and Slam Jose, which is a basketball tournament. So we still have a lot of events just this year, but we are still doing more to attract these kind of events in the out years. All right, so next, our final focus area is building more housing. All right, so one second here. All right, so in 2024, we had 0 market rate starts in San Jose. That is completely unacceptable. So we incentivized multi-family housing. Last year, we broke ground on 2,000 new homes in areas already additional units, and we hope those break ground soon. We also need housing across the income level and income spectrum. So that obviously means we need affordable housing. Last year, we permitted almost 1,300 units, and we've averaged, a great fun fact, we've averaged investing nearly $50 million in affordable housing over the last 7 years. We need more housing across the income level and in places where we've already designated as growth areas. So how are we doing that? We are helping housing pencil in the city of San Jose. We need to pull every lever we can to spur the development of housing. This example on the screen is the Bank of Italy project, one of the most historic buildings in San Jose. It just last week broke ground to start work on its conversion from office space to residential. So how did we do that? We helped cut construction costs, we reduced parkland fees, and we're removing some inclusionary housing ordinances. So, you know, we can help that break ground, and we can't, the important note here is that we can't collect future revenue if the project isn't built to begin with. So we're trying to help it get started, and then we can have the housing that we need, and we have the economic development that we want to see. Additionally, we are creating new home ownership. We're trying to do in San Jose is expand that market. And the way we're doing that is a new state law that allows ADUs to be sold as condos. We're taking advantage of that. San Jose was the first city to actually have a condoized ADU in the state. And the reason for this is we need to add more options for young home buyers so they can build equity and enter the market at a reasonable price. So this year, we're exploring what ADU homeownership looks like in a pilot for first-time home buyers, and there'll be more on that come May in the proposed operating budget. And to close, we also have some other important work that the city is focused on. Invest millions into our youth, and this service master plan establishes a more long-range vision for how we can provide cradle to career support for our community. This year, even though we have limited funds and we're facing the deficit, we think it's time to move some of our more critical programs like workforce development and after-school program into a more stable funding source. Additionally, we are going to be exploring audit contract spending and some more accountability measures. So as the 12th largest city in America, we know that we have to depend on outside entities like vendors and contractors to deliver certain services, but we need to make sure that we're getting our money's worth. Inspectors and making sure that we are getting the service that we're paying for. I do want to note, though, this is not necessarily the fraud conversation that we're talking about. It's just making sure that we are paying into services that we believe in. And so San Jose, just want to let everyone know, we annually receive a clean and no issues audit from an external auditor, and that's making sure our finances are clean and there's no there. So to close, obviously, we value your trust, and we want to make sure that we are funding the services and needs of our community. We do always want to highlight, though, that in the last 3 years, trust in City Hall is up 40%. The way we have earned that trust and increased that trust is by focusing across those services that were previously mentioned, making sure that we are delivering the results that our community wants to see, and that we are listening and responsive to the priorities that you have outlined for us. And we don't take that trust for granted. This year, we are going to have to, sharpen our pencils and really have a difficult conversation about trade-offs. But I want you to know that this deficit will only help us focus. So that's it. I just want to turn to questions. I'm sure many of you have hard ones for me, but I hope that was informative, and hopefully we can get into it. Yes, sir. In the back, one of our youth.
Hello. I was wondering because I see you do a lot, you're having a lot of investment on housing and on many events into San Jose. Are there any other things you're doing to improve the street life?
Street life, like
More opening up more closed buildings, bringing more people walking around downtown, stuff like that.
yeah, I think that's a little bit of what I talked about in the experience economy, bringing large events in and making sure that it's safe, first of all. So encouraging folks who live in Almaden to come downtown, make it fun, make it easy to get in. So making sure that our parking garages are up to snuff, that kind of thing. But in terms of like nightlife and street life, I think that that's mainly like we have to pay for safety and cleanliness, but then the more like programming stuff like that, we'll leave that up to like private business owners, like the clubs and the bars and SAP Center that's out there. But I think we can create the conditions to have a better nightlife in downtown. You'll see that if you pay attention to city council, there's a new, our office is not involved in this currently, but there is a new proposal to reintroduce al fresco dining, which is outdoor dining. And that was popular back in the COVID years of restaurants having the ability to, have a couple outside tables that are not within their doors. And that might be a positive boon as well to that foot traffic.
Well, then it needs to be mic'd so the Zoom.
I'll get you next. Go ahead, Lydia.
Hello.
Okay.
My comment is kind of right in line with the al fresco dining. That please don't leave the rest of the city out in the cold when discussing the permitting al fresco dining, because it seemed like from what I read that the city was going to concentrate it on downtown areas and different business district areas, but the rest of the city should be able to do the same thing, and it certainly helps a lot. There's people that we have with our great weather, we should be encouraging that and allowing the restaurants to do it, get out of the way. Yep.
Appreciate that. Our council colleagues are the one bringing that memo forward. I'll be sure to relay that to our economic development policy folks that, hey, I'm sure what it's probably because it's focused on downtown. They're trying to start with a smaller subset of the city and then seeing how it can be expanded upon, but I'll be sure to take that note to our folks. Thank you. Lydia.
I have a few questions, but I'm going to just give you one now. Specifically, how many residents did you clear out of the jungle with the encampment breakdown on this point? I know it was quite expensive, both with resources, people, and the removal of property from that. But I was also just curious how many of them went into housing, and what was the cost of that removal, and what was the result in them getting housing? Or did we just run them to another
So
spot?
great question. My colleague Ben here might be better suited to answer this. I don't have the stats off the top of my head.
Sure. Hey, Ben Irwin, I work in Mayor's Communications Office. So the jungle abatement is actually starting this week. And we believe there's about 100 or so folks currently in the jungle. And as we know right now, all of them have agreed to shelter. Typically, when we start abatements, that number tends to drop when push actually comes to shove. So we may see that number drop to closer to maybe 70%.
And in terms of cost of the overall abatement, Lydia, as it actually is completed, I think we'll be publishing figures on that most likely. The other thing, though, to note about just encampment abatements generally, we are seeing now that we have less large-scale encampments, the abatement of Columbus Park and now the jungle. This actually helps us optimize the Beautify San Jose services that are responsible for encampment management. So we know that the larger scale encampments, when you get into the 50, 100 person encampments, those are far more expensive to clear and to provide resources for all those people. So with the less large scale encampments, we will see less of a burden on Beautify San Jose, and they'll be able to optimize some of their costs. So because they'll be primarily dealing with more one-off encampments that are definitely not 50 to 100 people. So that's definitely within the calculus. That's being baked into this proposed operating budget as well, kind of this this optimization of Beautify. And we feel pretty good about that, about, you know, the fact that we have cleared many of these large encampments and that we are now in a mode of preserving progress with these smaller ones. Yes, sir.
Am I on? Yes, I am. I want to ask you a question about conversions of office space to residential and what that means to the budget and revenue to the city. So a good example is the Bank of Italy, right? And I realize that there isn't as much demand for office space as we would like. But let's assume for a second that you could fill the Bank of Italy with business. When you think about how much revenue that generates for the city against it as a residential complex, can you give me a sense of what that means revenue-wise?
I don't have hard figures for the Bank of Italy project. I will say that the conversion from office space to housing will be somewhat rare. I don't think we're going to take every office building that's vacant in downtown and create housing. I'm sure there is a formula out there that we can get from the housing department, but what I would understand it to be is there's definitely calculus being made, especially for the Bank of Italy building, which is a one-off thing. It's been vacant since I think the early 2000s or I think it was 2015 where there was even anything operating out of there. I'll check on that. But we know that, you know, taxes and revenue in terms of housing, it's going to be less than the commercial space, but that we'll still see benefit in terms of sales tax and property tax. So I don't know the exact trade-off that we're making when we convert, but I don't think it will be as significant of a cliff. And we're not looking to do this in a blanket case across downtown or across the city. I think in select buildings where it can, you know, reasonably be translated or converted into housing, they'll explore it. We know that developers aren't just going to go, you know, it has to pencil. It has to be financially feasible. And I think the city's also not super interested in just selling off all that office space. We do want to see those vacant office buildings filled with employers in the long run for the health.
So there's a similar situation with the Hilton Annex, which is now housing for San Jose State students.
Yes.
I would assume we lost a lot of revenue from hotel room rentals, if in fact there were enough people renting those rooms.
Yep.
Now that building is not owned by San Jose State yet, is it?
I think it is. I would want to double check that. And I wasn't.
It's officially purchased by them now?
I think that is the case. And it's Spartan Village. It's what it's known as now. And you're right. I mean, we lost a huge hotel space in downtown San Jose. That has impacts to our sales tax, absolutely has impacts to our transient occupancy tax, which is our hotel tax that helps fund arts and culture programs. There was definitely a hit there. We lost, I think it's something like 800 rooms of hotel nights there. But they were sitting empty. Yeah, there was a decision made because that hotel wasn't well utilized, and it was better to serve as campus housing for the students that are there. And San Jose State is in dire need of student housing as well. We know that it's something like 45% of their student population is commuting from outside of San Jose. Yeah. Yeah. You got a mic.
Okay.
Go first.
Hi, thanks for coming. I think one of the first things you mentioned was we have a budget deficit of 56 million. And then you shared all the 5 focus areas. Excellent. Tell me what we are disinvesting in, if anything.
Yeah.
That was, I think, missing from your presentation.
And there's a reason it's missing. It's because we don't 100% know yet. So the proposed operating budget that will come on May 1st will outline those trade-offs. So the mayor's March budget message, it laid out what we want to invest in. It didn't necessarily have the conversation yet of what are we going to cut and what are we trading off. That will be the discussion as we get into the June message. So stay tuned because that's going to be those difficult conversations are coming in the next couple of weeks. The city manager will come. We have a slight idea of the services that might be cut. And it's mainly going to be programmatic. We're hoping that we're not going to have sweeping layoffs or anything like that, but we will know more and we'll have a far more concrete answer for you come May 1st.
May 1st?
May 1st is when the proposed operating budget is published by the city manager.
And where and how do we get this information?
So we will absolutely probably share that in our newsletter. I would have a guess, but it will be on the city webpage. If you go to the City of San Jose website and you go your government, When you go to that tab, you press budget and it'll be posted in those documents. You can see where it's posted for previous years, but it's not yet published yet. Yes, sir. Microphone? Oh, you have a mic, so you'll go first.
Is there anyone else?
You had a mic, he's gonna go. Get him.
Okay. Keith, first I'd like to say that it's really great to see a local kid grow up in San Jose, educated in San Jose, working for the city. You got a vested interest in ensuring that things are running right here. You know, I think that's really great.
I also recently founded a neighborhood association that I'm serving as the president of. So, hey, I'm
Yeah.
vested.
Appreciate that. Can I put you on the spot again about a budget question? Specifically budget deficits. We've been running a budget deficit like at least 3 years in a row. In 2003, I think it was 14 million. Year after that, 2024, I think it was like 26. Now it's 53. Why are we continually running a deficit? Why not a surplus? It's not a rounding error. If it's rounding error, it would go both ways, right? We'd have a surplus, then we have a budget. It seems like we're continually in the hole. And I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, our reserves are gone. We have no reserves. We have to cut now, right? Is that true?
Correct. So
So-
there is what's called the budget stabilization reserve, which we put some funding into to help us with next year's deficit, but that doesn't address your question of why are we running a deficit to begin with. The reason for that is one piece of it is we're just not, our revenues aren't keeping pace with the costs that we have as a city. Part of that is that unfunded pension liability that we mentioned, which is taking 20% off our general fund on an annual basis. That translates to $380 million this year. So, I mean, our deficit's $56 million. We have a huge pension liability, but our residents still expect a variety of services to be provided. So, you know, in the past couple, this is the first deficit that I've personally dealt with at the city. I've been on the budget team for 3 years, and well, we had a limited deficit last year, not $56 million. So I can't necessarily speak to what was happening in 2003. I was 3 years old, but I do know that the budget management has improved, and the reason for this is it's economical. It's not a waste, fraud, and abuse thing. It is because our revenue sources just are not keeping up. That has to do with limited development. It has to do with you know, some might say Prop 13 has an impact here because our tax base just is a little bit older, and that, you know, it's a valid thing to say, but there's not a perfect answer as to why are we running the deficit.
Let me tell you what bothers me about this is we got a lot of high-priced people working in the manager's office. Okay, these people are making good money. All right, these are all predictable things: revenue decrease, taxes, that sort of thing. They ought to be able to predict this. They ought to be able to. I mean, they could do a Monte Carlo simulation.
I would say they have predicted it. The budget office was projecting in the last couple 5-year forecasts this deficit. And we did prepare last year to help with this. We put aside that budget stabilization reserve last year. We set aside $27 million to help us with this year's deficit. So 100%, we should have more foresight. I do think, though, that the budget office does try their best within our confines and our constraints to prepare and set aside some funds to help deal with this.
Well, we know that the economy may not be that good in the future, in the near future. I mean, these folks ought to be setting some money aside for that rainy day. I mean, I would hope they're doing it. Are they doing it?
Yes. So I can't give you a hard figure yet. We'll know on May 1st what that budget stabilization reserve will look like for this fiscal year. But I'll tell you, the city manager is extremely conservative in this sense. She does not like spending out of that rainy day fund, the budget stabilization reserve, and she is very protective of that. So we'll continue to have that conversation as we get to June and we pass a June message. But I will say they are definitely mindful of setting some funds aside for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, quick question on another source of revenue. Is there any talk or effort to take over the utilities for San Jose? The water company, for instance, and PG&E, make sure Patty, what's her name, gets her $10 million. Anything going on in that direction?
Yeah, good question. I don't think that the city is, I haven't heard conversations about the city bringing San Jose Water or any water utilities in-house. I briefly touched on it in the presentation about PG&E. The city declined to move forward with a municipal-owned electric utility, and we opted instead to partner and bring new capacity from PG&E into the city. So I think there's 2 gigawatts coming into San Jose. That is doubling our current power supply in San Jose over the next 8 years, I think it is. Tripling the power supply in San Jose.
Where is that coming from?
It's coming from, well, they're creating new transmission lines, LS Power and PG&E. There's 2 transmission lines coming into San Jose, one through the Coyote Valley and the other one through North San Jose. And those will provide some, Ben is actually much more suited to answer this. He's pretty steeped in it, but did I miss anything there?
To kind of piggyback off your comments, sir, about why we're in a deficit, growing the pie. This is the way this is the play we're making right now, is all the investment in AI infrastructure is happening right now. And power municipalization would have taken probably 10 years for us to do, and involved being mired in a lawsuit with PG&E. So instead of that, the city chose to partner with PG&E. And that has led to a $1.6 billion committal in infrastructure upgrades from PG&E, which is allowing us to deliver these projects that bring jobs, that bring revenue growth in the next 2 to 5 years, rather than starting from scratch in 10 years when the boom is likely over.
Thanks, Ben. Any other questions? Lydia again, yes.
So I wanted to ask you about your comment saying that you're going to have a priority on audits of contractors. Do you know how many were done this fiscal year and how many you're planning to do in this area? And is there a focus? So I'm going to just let me ramble on for a second and you can think of your answer. One of the areas is, where's the focus at this time? How many are we going to do? Is it just a snapshot? Or is it going to be something where we're really looking, what's the objective? Do we want to save money? Are we looking for where we're getting ripped off in some of the areas? Will we focus on places like destination home? Or are we going to look at some of the transportation, from that where we've had large contracts, large overruns, et cetera, with MGE and others?
So great question. I would say I don't have we don't know yet the number of audits that we will have money for. These things can be extremely expensive, but we have directed the city manager to allocate some funding for an external audit. What will we audit? It will probably be up to the council decision. We also have the city auditor that undergoes several programmatic audits for the city, and that is council direction. So we'll have to get a list presented, and he can select the ones that he's able and capable of conducting. And then for the ones he's not, that are more forensic financial audits, we'll have to hire external auditors. Now, some things that we would like, but yeah, what would we like to see? I think where the city grants a significant amount of money. So this could be some of our youth programming, making sure that the nonprofits that we grant money to are conducting the service and having the impact that we want for the dollars. Not to say that they aren't, but just making sure that we are getting our money's worth and the community is being served. There will probably be a conversation about our homeless shelter operators and making sure that we're getting the money or the impact that we want to see from the dollars invested. Yep. Which is, that is a variety of organizations that we work with to provide those services. So it depends. I think we'll probably look to department heads as well to say, hey, is this the contract that we should be looking at? And do you think we could be doing better? And then we'll be filtering that to the city auditor and any external audit capacity that we bring online.
So can I just piggyback in on that? Because I will from that, but I'm concerned. I'm happy about one thing. We moved the San Jose Animal Services from Department of Transportation, and it's now in Parks. Parks has been extremely decimated on their budget for years. They water trees where there is no tree there. And so that's rather sad. But one of those issues is that because of a lot of feedback from the citizens in San Jose, then the mayor said, we will do an audit of the animal shelter. And that was from the state of the city in 2023. The audit came out and it was a slow walk and a slow movement. That's a waste of my taxpayer dollars if we don't have prioritization, emphasis, and ensuring that the city manager is working on the absolute things and not getting a million to-dos from every council person in that area. Somehow that discussion and what we do, we really have to, let's just say, get back to the basics of what matters in working in our city.
Agreed. You gave me a lot to chew on there. So yes, the Animal Care Service Center will be coming back to the Parks, Recreation, and Neighborhood Services Department. It was there before the Great Recession, and now it's going back home, as people have been saying, to Neighborhood Services. John Cicerelli, the director of PRNS, used to run the animal care shelter. So hopefully he has some understanding of how to correct that. I will say that the Public Works Department did complete, it took way too long, and we agree, and our office had a lot of frustration with this, but they did complete the audit recommendations that were outlined in that audit, which is promising, good. But now we need to see how the operation and service can be further improved under this new house on August 1st. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is also, it was under the Public Works Department. The Public Works Department probably wasn't best suited to be doing that. Not to say that they shouldn't have done a good job and been having excellent service, but it was a matter of focus. They have a lot of things to cover, and we should make sure it's housed in the correct area. And that's part of that optimization and focus conversation is if we can make a service better by moving it or putting someone else in charge, a different department in charge, we should definitely explore that. So I think the mayor's been on that, and that is very consistent with the message of back to basics and focus. It's just making sure that the people who are actually operating this know how to do the job.
Okay.
Yes.
Have a question, my friend. Same about the animal shelter. I heard the budget, of course, everybody hearing about the budget deficit. And I am always looking to see more spay neuter programs, less euthanizing happening at animal shelter. Do you think, do you see that there will be less funding going to the animal shelter for the programs, or will it be same?
So to be determined, again, it will be included in the proposed operating budget, but in the March message, we gave explicit direction around funding the TNR program, the Trap, Neuter, Release program, as well as maintaining current levels of funding for the animal shelter. So I don't think we'll see major cuts there, but what the service looks like and what the balance of spay and neuter versus TNR will be, and hopefully that means that we're also seeing a decrease in euthanasia. It's TBD, but we have directed to maintain funding and then also fund TNR to previous levels as well.
Yeah. And this question, maybe animal shelter is better to answer, but then I asked once when Jay Terrado came, I was like, why when there's so many people shop, then adopt, but there are so many programs I see, but then animal shelter should reach out to local schools, high schools, middle schools, and encourage kids, students, or wherever the youth are, mentioning the importance of adopting from the shelter, rescuing, or if you don't want a pet, at least foster. You could be a vacation foster, a temporary foster, or even 2 weeks, as less as it. The message is not out to many, and a lot of people think shelter has some kind of bad animals. No, you'll see wonderful dogs. My neighbor adopted a wonderful dog from animal shelter. She's so beautiful. Stevie, her name. So when I mentioned that back then, he said, oh, connect us, we will do it. Now, why we are connecting and why the animal shelter director, whoever it is, why they're not trying to reach out send this message out. So then the shelters will be clear, right? I know the mayor is working very hard. Couple of times he did clear the shelters day, all that, but then the management in the animal shelter, what are they doing about this? Thank you.
So I'm not 100% certain what the animal shelter's capacity is to do some of that, like education, like into the schools, marketing, promoting, adopt for shop. I'm sure that's, they have certain messaging that they can, spread. I just don't know what their capacity is. I don't know if they have like a public information officer or marketing team that's able to help with that. I think it definitely helps that you are an aware resident that's telling your neighbors, hey, the great things about the shelter program. But I don't necessarily know what the city has coming down and what we're investing in is as it relates to that kind of like marketing and promotion of it. The city manager and the mayor have both been really strong on promoting this. The Clear the Shelters days, and there's a couple other events that have kind of promoted the adoption from the shelter. They did an event in like a pop-up space actually in downtown where it was like a cat and dog day where they had a space that was vacant and they used it to kind of be a showcase and kind of like an adoption drive. But I don't know how much budget we actually have allocated to do those kind of special events and marketing campaigns. We'll have to see in May. But I know that the city manager, this is a huge priority for her. She's really disappointed in kind of the state of the shelter, and it's something that she wants to see improve in her time as the head of the city. And the mayor, same thing, very tired of the narrative that the shelter is failing our residents and our animals, and wants to make sure that we are serving both populations appropriately. Anyone else? Have I exhausted the questions?
Oh, do we have one more question?
Okay.
Since you're new, I volunteered at that shelter for a better part of 14 years. We used to have an intake prior to 2020 of over 17,000 animals with a 92% live release rate. All right. If you follow the city reports, every year intake has been going down. This year we're on track for only 10,000 animals. All right. Back when we were handling an intake of 17,000 animals a year, the budget was like $8 million. Okay. We had one director and one manager. The director was Sorelli. Okay. Then, 2020, Toronto took over. And all of a sudden we have 3 directors now and 2 managers. And like I said, every year intake has been going down. We're turning animals away. We used to be the nationwide leader in TNR. We were doing 160 animals a week, felines a week for TNR. Now it's like a trickle. And we got 3 vets. We used to have only 2. So there's a real management problem over there. And I'd sure like to see some correction, some accountability. Yeah. Every year in December, people get up and they're really angry about what's going on at the shelter. So, if we're having a budget deficit problem, now's the time. Right now, if you divide 17 million by 10,000, that's $1,700 an animal. That's really expensive. That's a problem. That budget should be probably close to 12 million.
I think so. It's going to be in the next fiscal year because the operations are moving from Public Works to PRNS on August 1st is when the transition is final. I think we will see a reorganization. I can't speak to the personnel, but we're certainly not happy in the mayor's office with how that service has been conducted. I can't speak to necessarily, the release rates. I know that the live release rate is something that's important, and it's a metric that we need to be paying attention to.
It's no longer a no-kill shelter. It's horrible. So just so you know,
we have our members of our policy team are very dedicated to this issue. I am not as steeped in this. It's just not something I have spent a lot of time on, but I do know this is a priority for us, and we are going to be monitoring the transition pretty closely.
For several years now, it's been the poster child of poor management. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you, Keith. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it tremendously. And thank you all for being here. Next month, we will be looking further at the general fund, or excuse me, the, what is it? The general plan. Yes.
All right. I also forgot to mention, if you didn't like my presentation and you want to hear it straight from the mayor, May 4th He will be at the Santa Teresa Catholic Church on Calero and Cahalan, right next to Fire Station 12. If you want to hear it straight from him, please do attend. I highly recommend it. It will actually be in my neighborhood, so it's gonna be it's fun, but it's gonna be for districts 2, 9, and 10 because this year we have kind of aggregated these budget town halls. So if you want to hear from him, that's the day, and we'll be sending out some more communications about that soon.
Perfect. Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much. So as I was saying, next month, we're going to be looking at the general plan task force recommendations for changing how many units can be built on particular parcels and some housing issues. So please come back to our next month's meeting, and we are adjourned. Thank you.